All right, to start off the trusted platform demo, we're gonna really take a look at it from the high level, starting from the MCM multi-cloud management console, and we're gonna drill down into some details to see the trust status of the nodes. So we're gonna start here. This is the IBM Cloud Pack for multi-cloud management. This is the management cluster that we're looking at. And before we go into details of trust, let's first look at what the environment looks like. So if we go into overview, we can see we have one cluster like depicted in the architecture diagram, and this is the managed cluster. And within this managed cluster, we're gonna observe the trust status of one of our bare metal nodes, which is worker number 5. So in order to ensure that all nodes are trusted within the cluster, we have put in place a MCM policy. And so if we go under governance and risks within the management console, we have this policy here called policy trusted node. And so what this trusted node policy, if we go in here to take a look, is doing is it's ensuring that all the bare metal nodes on the cluster have been attested to a hardware root of trust. So we can drill in into details of this policy. We can go in and see that currently is compliant, and we can see the status saying that all nodes are trusted. So if we wanted to find out a bit more about what is the trust status based on and what is the actual attestation of this host, we can do that. And so to do that, we are going to go to the OpenShift cluster, which is being managed. So this is the managed cluster, and this is the OpenShift console. And if we go to under compute, we go to nodes. We have our hardware bare metal server here, worker number 5. We go in here, and this looks pretty normal like any other node, except that if you notice under node labels, we have additional tag here called trusted equals to true, and a certain trust tag expiry. And so these are labels that are being propagated by Intel Cycle Attestation Hub, and this basically reflects the trust status of the node. So if we wanted to go even deeper and find out about what exactly this trust status is based on, we can click on annotations of the node over here. And we notice that there's a key called trust tag sign report. So this trusted tag sign report is really the attestation report that is generated by the hardware root of trust attestation. So this is a JWT, and so if we go to a JWT debugger and we paste it in here, we can see that it passes well, and we notice that there are some details in the payload that we can verify. So first of all, it's what we're expecting, worker number 5 in our lab environment. We can see that the trust status is overall true. We can see that the software stack is true. We can see that the platform trust is true. And we can see that the operating system trust is true as well. So this is a list of the attestations that are happening for this particular host. And we can see further down, we can see hardware features such as TPM and TXC are enabled here. All right, so now that we have a trusted cluster, let's take a look at what it would look like if one of the nodes happened to be untrusted or become untrusted. So this would be a case where a node may no longer have the correct measurements in terms of running the correct operating system, firmware, or software stack. And the way we're going to simulate a node becoming untrusted here is to address the metadata of what the attestation server is looking for. So instead of looking for the correct version of the firmware or platform, we are going to indicate to the attestation server that a different hash should be found instead. And the way we do this in Intel Cycle is to look at something called flavors. So flavors is an indication of what should be measured for a particular host. So in this case, we're looking at a flavor which is a platform for the host that we are talking about. And really what this is doing is specifying what certain PCRs may look like. In this case, platform means firmware and BIOS and a few other events. So if we scroll down over here, we can see certain values that have been set that it's expecting as a PCR value. So what we're going to do here is we are going to delete this flavor, and this will then make the measurement and attestation invalid. So we're just going to call into the flavors API to delete that flavor. So after doing that, what we should notice is a node should now become untrusted, and this should flag a policy violation because the attestation is no longer valid. So if we go back to governance and risk under the MCM management console, we notice that we have now a policy violation in our cluster. And so if we click into it, to the trusted node policy that we have in place, we can now see that it is no longer compliant. And if we go into details of this, we see that we now have a warning that it's not compliant and there's a violation that worker 5 is no longer trusted. Now, because we have set the remediation action of this policy to inform, there is currently no actions being done. But what we can do now is, in a case where we want it to be strict and say that once a node is no longer trusted, it should be removed from a cluster, we can change this policy to set to enforce. So we go back to the policy and modify the YAML here. And instead of inform, we are going to modify it to enforce. We're going to save the policy. Now if we go back to the policy, we notice that it's now compliant, and if we look into the details of the policy, we will see that it's now compliant after removing untrusted nodes worker number 5. So now that the worker has been removed from the cluster, the trust status of the cluster is again true.